All right, welcome back to MGD 111 Photoshop Enhancement. We're going to take another look at some sharpening and blurring features here. Now this time, instead of using our filter menu, we're going to use a couple of tools that we have in our toolbar here. So if we hover down to here, right below your paint bucket or gradation tool, we have the blur tool, the sharpen tool, and the smudge tool. So let's start with the sharpen tool. In this. And what we can do is we just basically set a brush size. We set it up here, and we have all the options for setting a brush like we have in our other palettes, so that's pretty cool. We can set the pixel size, we can set the hardness to 0 so it has a soft edge, set the hardness to 100 so it has a rough edge, or a very smooth edge rather. And if we brush over this, you'll see it sort of enhances just that area that we sprayed. Now, it works kind of like a spray can of paint in that the more we spray in an area, it keeps on sharpening and sharpening and sharpening. Now, the problem with that, of course, is, just like with our other sharpening tools, we can over-sharpen an area and turn it into a very pixelated mess. Much like the sharpen filter, immediately after we have applied sharpening, we can go to Edit, and we have Fade Sharpen Tool. And this is a fairly new function. It used to only work with filters. So Fade Sharpen Tool. And again, we can sort of dial it back down a bit. So it allows the previous state to show through, and it makes the new state sort of fade back. So that's kind of a neat function there that we have access to. I'm going to click Cancel here because that was kind of overkill. I'm going to go back to the open state here. Now let's move over to this other tail light that's a lot more focused. Under the Sharpen tool, there's also the Blur tool, and it works the same way, but of course in the opposite. If I spray over it, you'll see it blurs it a little bit, and the more I spray, the blurrier it gets. And again, we have that same option where we can go up to Edit, and then Fade Blur tool, and it allows us to fade it back. And again, just like with the filters, the blur tool works much more effectively because just the way nature works, we can continuously blur something and just make it less and less focused. The more we focus on something, the more ugly detail it shows, if you will. So I'm going to click Cancel here. I'm going to go back to the open state. So this is kind of a handy tool if there's just a small area that you want to sort of focus on, or unfocus on, really. And I should point out, by the way, remember the Sharpen and Blur filters too. If you select an area using any of your selection tools, you can apply it to just that. Same thing here. If there's an area that we want to brush around it, but we want to make sure we don't have overspray, we can select an area first. But you can kind of see how those two tools work. Real quickly, the other one is the smudge tool. Let's get you a nice big brush on this one here. And what that does is it just sort of grabs a point and kind of smudges it in a certain direction. There's not a lot of use for this particular tool other than sort of stretching and distorting something. I haven't found a lot of practical uses for realistic images, but it is kind of a neat tool. And if you just keep going in the same area, you can also curve around too. You can go in all sorts of different directions. So you can make some pretty weird effects with this particular tool. Again, it's not the most practical thing in the world, but it's hidden in there. Thought you should know about it. And just like before, we have the Fade Smudge tool. So if we want to fade it back, this works a little bit differently because things get repositioned. So it's going to show the new image down here fading into the one up there. It could be used for some sort of trippy effects, but use at your own risk. Let's go back to our original state, save it, and we will continue looking at this picture for some additional tips and tools.